Will, today we have a pre-seed deck. So it's pre-seed. Going to make sure that we understand the stages we talked about. And this deck wants to raise $1.5 million. And we are going to work through the deck. And I just want to show what we're doing here is we're going to use our regular tools just to get some information about the potential investors. And this is all brought to you by us here at Startups.com. Investor matching. Go to the website if you haven't checked it out already, and you can read all about it in terms of matching with ideal investors, getting everything automated, help you with your pitch deck, and you can track everything. The investor outreach writes the emails for you. And here I've got the email, or I've got the deck loaded up. I'm going to click analyze, and we're going to show the investors and sort of how we're matching. And I like to do this, Will, because it gives me kind of an idea of the direction that I'm pointing in
Yeah.
when it comes to these investors, because that's how fast this starts to work. And it always helps just to know what you'll be looking at working with, because $1.5 million check, that's a significant amount of money.
It
Well,
is.
what are your thoughts in terms of just talking about Investor Match and your invitation to founders to try this?
I want to start by saying every person that's our customer is actually a founder. So like it's a lot of people who have customers that they don't do the same thing that they do, but like our customers do exactly what we do. I say this to say every time you fire up this app, Ed, it brings a huge smile to my face because we work so damn hard on this thing, and I'm so happy to see it live. And when I see it work, it still brings me so much joy. I say this because everybody in the audience are founders. Isn't it awesome when you finally get to see your product in lights and like you're like, God damn, that worked out so much better than I thought it would. So
It does,
I'm
for
happy.
sure.
So, um, but it's been scratching an itch that we've had for 20 years, which is this whole investor searching process is a nightmare. It just takes forever, and it doesn't need to. And Ed, you and I have been coaching people for forever about how to do this well. Now we just don't have to. We're like, just use the tool. Just use the tool. It's going to do it all the work for you.
I'm glad these results came up because we've got an angel investor here, and it literally says right in the description, Rick's investment thesis interests include transportation and enterprise software, which is where we're headed. And then we
And
have
he's in
the
pre-seed, which is perfect.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
we got Germany. This is the mobility fund. Now everybody, some founders, they don't realize they can do this, and so we can just go USA, and then we can show verify, which means that we have manually confirmed that they exist. So Rick still falls in, and then we've got Zeta, and they've got artificial intelligence, SaaS, software,
I'm
venture
familiar with Zeta
capital.
for sure. Yeah.
Are you? Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. So analytics, AI for real-time analytics and behavior. So this is going
This
to
is so
help.
specific.
Absolutely, which
Right.
is the really great thing. So founders, a lot of founders also think that, hey, I need to have my pitch deck complete before I can upload it. Actually, our AI can read a business plan if necessary. And just to give you an idea, now, obviously, that's not what you're going to be sending out, but gather the intelligence and try it so you get the lay of the land. That's my recommendation. Will,
Yep.
what other things do you have just to get people started in using the tool?
Yeah, it's just a couple things. Again, this is for everybody to use. You can do this stuff for free. So it's not like I'm trying to sell you on doing something. At the very least, before you even think about reaching out to investors, go on the tool and just see who that universe of investors even looks like. I say this because most people end up going out with a fundraise and it breaks because they talk to all the wrong people. They just pitch all the wrong people. I know I've done it. I had nowhere near this level of like access to tools. I did it the hard way, where I just like found investor by investor, and I pitched everybody that would listen without having any idea that most of the people I was talking to made no sense for what I was doing. And I was getting all these no's, and I was all depressed about it at the times back when I was first fundraising. And now I realized, wow, what a wasted effort. This is allowing me to focus on only the people that make a ton of sense. So that's where it does the heavy lifting. But the other thing is, it'll also this is kind of an interesting note. It'll also generate your outbound email. Now, whether or not you use the system to send it doesn't matter. I just want you to see how it is positioning your email. All founders, we got a ton of people in the audience today. Just use the tool to see what that email looks like, because we structured it in a very specific way so that the most important points come up first, and the email is short and tight and focused, which is not how most of the emails we get the first time around are. So please, please, please take a look at what's there.
Bill, I've got a story for you. We did a pitch deck review, and it was about the circular finance with the immigrant families, diaspora. We helped them with their pitch deck, and then his email didn't connect with the system. So all he did was he looked at the investors and then cut and paste and manually sent the emails himself.
Yeah,
And he reached out to, I believe, three people. He got one meeting, VC already.
went in, was fast.
That
That's good to
was
hear.
really good. Yeah, it's great. So then now what we're going to do is here's a challenge, Will. Okay, so each slide, we each get a minute
Oh, I like this. Okay.
to give our impressions, and then maybe spend another minute on how to improve it. But we have so much information out there, everyone, on what to do with your pitch decks that I think we can just blast through this and then you can continue to research and learn.
I went through this deck 3 times today.
Yeah.
3 times, which is 2.5 times more than I usually go through a deck. And I have no idea what they do. And I say this to say, but I feel like they're really good at what they do.
Yes. Which is
This is
typical, right?
this is one of those cases, and I'm just going to say this before we get into it. This is one of those cases where I feel like we've got a really good potential product and a really good founder with a pitch deck that is just blasting everything out there. Like the pitch deck in my mind is very broken. This is not a knock to the founder, by the way. What I'm saying is, I think I understand what you do, but maybe not. But I definitely can get that you know what you're doing, but this pitch deck is working against you. So I'm gonna say that in this context, so that when all the other founders that are watching this read this, they might go, "I have no idea what Will's talking about. This makes no sense. This thing is completely cogent, and Will's an idiot." And that would probably be a logical assessment. Let me show you as we go through. Just keep that in the back of your mind that I still have no idea what these guys actually do.
I'm going to one up. I see your 10 and raise you 10. I'm going to double
Bring it on.
down, push the chips all in. I'm going to say there are names in this audience, and you know who you are. I've seen your pitch decks, and you do exactly what's happening in the slide. And again, it's not because you're not born with this skill. Nobody
Yeah.
takes you aside. It's just natural, but your pitch decks are verbose. You put a lot of information in there. So I am keeping all of you in mind.
That's a great point. For folks that get to see someone else doing the same thing, like
Exactly.
we're loading the pitch deck,
Yeah.
sometimes it's easier because you're like, well, damn, I had to say everything I was going to say, but now that I'm looking at somebody else's, I can see why this thing wouldn't make sense. But let's get into it, without further ado.
I appreciate the preview. Okay, so Park Easy, parking operation, business intelligence management platform, a whole bunch of tech, no apps, cameras. I feel like you got to have voiceover in there, and then we got a testimonial quote on the side. I can see this being in every vehicle on the road. 1 minute initial impression.
Parking operations, business intelligence and management platform. No idea what that means. Okay. Technology layer for the connected vehicle era. I don't know what that means. And here's the thing. Like, I know this stuff really well. So it's not like I'm like a total rube. Like, I am so into this stuff.
Same thing. I have no idea. I'm totally lost. If I looked at this slide, it looks like an advertising that ends up with not even a product. I don't even know what. See, this being in every vehicle on the road, I have no idea what that is. So right now, the solution, Will, is to what?
The solution is to strip all of this and go back when we get to the end of this and say what is one sentence that actually explains exactly what we do.
Why do founders do this? Why do they throw everything in the kitchen sink on a slide like this?
We got a couple reasons. It happens all the time. And again, let's do a standard disclaimer. Founder, you are awesome for allowing us to do this, right?
Bravo.
It takes
Yes.
a tremendous amount of bravery to be able to put this in front of everybody and not be able to respond. That's the hardest part, right? It's one of the requests we make is that you have to allow us to go through it without you chiming in and telling us that we're wrong, and we probably are. I think the reason founders do this, it comes from two categories, Ed. I think the first thing is founders forget that their audience doesn't know things the way they know things. So they'll say things like connected vehicle environment or connected vehicle platform, and they know exactly what that means. They forget that their audience has no idea what that means, right? They don't have the context or the history or the domain knowledge. The second thing is they want to say so many things that they do it at the expense of being able to remember anything. They just vomit as much information as possible with the idea that the audience is looking for as much information as possible.
And if you think you're pitching yourself and you forget, it's literally you're an echo chamber audience of one. You're processing the information super fast in your mind. Tons of friction now on the other side. So I see a lot of founders, they actually are pitching themselves. And they're like, of course I invest in myself, but they don't understand investors, an autonomous person with agency in their own mind, right?
Yep. Before we read one word, this slide is already too long. Because Ed, I'm going to call you out and say, hey, when you're done reading it, now close your eyes and read back to me exactly what you read. And no one can do it. There's no way that anybody can remember all of the information that's about to be presented here, right? It's stacked on top of stacked on top of stacked. Now, most founders start here, right? We always say that the pitch deck is a bunch of raw clay, and we'll keep shaping it, really taking stuff away until only what needs to be remains. There are so many different directions that this takes. You're making it incapable of me to walk away saying, okay, I know exactly what the problem is.
Right away, everything agree with you. Let me go into the weeds a little bit. When you say something like most parking infrastructure, that is an opinion. No idea what does most parking infrastructure means. This is all your opinion. And it actually, I have no idea if that's actually even a problem that exists or you're making it up, etc. Now, here's the other thing. 70% of the 100K US parking stalls, totally redundant. Just tell us it's 70,000 parking stalls.
Yep.
That's all you had to do. Losing $10 billion in annual losses from inefficiency. Okay, now we're getting there. To make this short and sweet, Will, literally, you could have told me 70,000 US parking stalls lose $10 billion in revenue because they're using outdated software.
Who gives a shit if they're using outdated software? Why does that matter?
You're right. I was going to
Like,
say outdated software that doesn't do this because it's outdated because it doesn't factor in this sort of thing where people can't find them. Like, I need to know why, which is what we're missing.
okay, that's what's killing me. And that's why I read this slide 3 times before we started recording the show today. It's lacks visibility on how drivers actually use space. What are you talking about? They either park or they don't, right? Is this app telling me where there's an open parking spot? Like, what is not happening in a parking lot that is a problem?
Exactly why this gets convoluted, Will, because this is where I'm going to corroborate what you said. I'm sure the founder knows what they're talking about because you got all this information out here, and somewhere in there, I'm sure there's a problem that you could stack rank, prioritize, and say, we're solving for this, but completely lost. And as an investor, I would have checked out at the cover, maybe peeked at this, and then I'd be done with this deck.
Correct. And we never want that to happen. Right. I think what the founder forgot to say here, parking lots make all their money being able to detect the vehicles going in. So whenever they can't detect a vehicle that's parking, they can't collect a fee from it. Something like that, right? But I think what happened here, and I see this a lot, and I'm just pontificating, is that the founder went into this and they said, I already, of course, everyone knows that it's parking lot, parking lots can't accurately track people. So I'm just going to jump to the next part around how they don't have optics or AI or all these things. It's like, whoa, you forgot to establish the premise. That's what happened here. You jumped the gun. You forgot to say parking lots make all their revenue from parking lot fees or parking fees, right? Yet they failed to collect the majority of it because they can't track the vehicle. We're talking about parking lot fees, and your thing tracks more vehicles. Okay, I get that. Think about how much content we've used in the title slide and the problem slide without specifically saying that. Now, also, I want to point out that might not be what this is, but that pisses me off more because I'm like, well, damn, dude, if that's not what it is, I have no idea. If it sounds like I'm being wildly frustrated, I'm not frustrated at the founder. I'm frustrated because my gut tells me this is actually probably a really good idea.
We don't get frustrated at founders. We get frustrated for founders on behalf of founders.
Put it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to follow the same vein. Everyone, you can just read this slide on your own. Take a moment. I'm going to just flat out point out, first of all, we see the wall of text. Immediately, your mind checks out. We have a statement. I'm only going to read the first sentence. Rebuilding parking infrastructure for modern tech with the connected vehicle area. Once again, it's a hyperbolic, buzzy statement, and we don't know. Exactly. We don't know. By the end, maybe we're getting closer. At least they use your technique. I'm sure they paid attention where they're bolding the things that they deem important.
That was great. Yeah, absolutely.
The result, higher revenue, lower overhead parking infrastructure, final scales digital. I still don't understand. I get the revenue part, but that's my feedback so far.
Still don't understand what the problem is. We're using a low footprint platform. Why is that important? Right. Again, it might be wildly important. I have no idea because you haven't explained to me why I would need a low footprint platform. You didn't say that was a problem. Combines wireless communications and AI. Okay. I guess to deliver real-time behavioral analytics by communicating directly with connected vehicles. Why is that important? Why is behavioral analytics important? We touched on it in the problem statement, but I think that the founder is like, oh, if you understood this problem, it's a huge issue. Like if you can figure out where to park people, but we never established that. I have no idea. And actually, there's a whole bunch of founders in the audience. If anybody here has an idea of what this thing actually is, by all means, please tell me. And I'm not saying my opinion is like the only way to process this, but I've seen tens of thousands of pitch decks, and I love this stuff. Like I love connected vehicle stuff. I love like EV stuff, everything. And if I'm scratching my head, I'm like, I can't imagine that a lot of investors wouldn't be like, hey, well, I don't know what's going on here.
On top of which, this immediately checks me out as well. I see a picture of groceries and then grocery retail comparative use case. Everyone, this was completely extraneous. In fact, it works against you because we get lost, and this even makes us more lost. Is really what's going on.
I still don't understand. What is the problem? Is the problem that there aren't enough parking spots? The problem is that we don't. People are driving away without paying a fee. Like,
here's my theory, and see, based on my scanning of the deck, I think this has to do with analyzing parking behavior. And
what does that even mean?
For smart vehicles, similar to if you want to measure and optimizing. So I knew some founders that were all about city planning, and they were like, with the advent of the Internet of Things, electric vehicles, smart buildings, people didn't know how to actually plan for that and optimize revenue. How many stalls, how many buildings, do we need chargers here? Does this have to light up there? And so they created this entire analytics. This is before AI really boomed. So they were doing it all manually, where they would gather all the data and then they would say, this is how you make a smart city. I think, now I could totally be wrong. Once again, I'm right here with Will. I could be so out to lunch. But that's what I picked up so far, which is wildly different than the directions you were going in. And that's the problem.
I don't know. Well, I mean, the fact that neither of us knows is the problem. Now, that said, I'm also thinking to myself again, we say this stuff just off the cuff, so you can kind of just see, one person's perspective. And again, with founders in the audience, if you have a different perspective, would love to hear it. I'm like, how complicated could a parking lot be? Right? Like when I used to live in LA, the big thing in all the malls and everything and all the parking structures, there's so many, was the light above the parking spot, right? So you had red light, green light, and basically you're looking for a green light for an open spot. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. You could deliberately start to queue people closer to the mall, to the shopping area, to the entrances, et cetera. You can send people through the parking lot faster so that they can get in at a target or where they're going to. But all I thought to myself is, it seems like a pretty simple system. When you're talking about like can capture all these behavioral analytics, what the hell is a behavioral analytic in a parking lot? Now it might be incredibly scientific and like missing the boat. The point is, I don't know that. I'd love to know that, but I don't.
Um, okay, Will, let's do this exercise here just to help the founder out. So you do a version of your problem solution, simplify it down, just picking one of the potential use cases there, and then
Yeah.
I'll do a version and let's just offer some suggestions.
Here's what I'm going to say. For parking lot operators, they lose $10 billion a year because they can't optimize how many cars fit in their parking lot.
Right.
Right now, I don't actually know that has anything to do with what this product is.
Sure.
But as I want to understand it, that's the only thing I would have put in my problem statement. I might have added a little bit more, but that's pretty much it. What about you?
Now say the solution.
Our solution captures every vehicle coming in through whatever the detection technology is to ensure that that we create parking lot efficiency up to 95%, creating billions of dollars in found revenue.
Okay, now let me take a different tack because so you went the parking lot planning. So something like I would say companies or parking lot companies lose $10 billion a year because they're not able to capture the revenue by tracking the vehicles because they're the parking revenue. Like because people park and don't pay, or people park and they get it wrong. Because I saw some stats on collections and having to send people in or whatever. So I'm just picking something, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then I say our system tracks every single vehicle and automatically collects everything like their stuff without the need for staff, reducing overhead to collections and increasing revenue by, whatever. $20 million.
Okay, so if that were the case, then we would have had to triangulate the problem statement to be able to say the reason they're losing 10 billion is due to collections, and so that's a category that we would tackle. Overstaffing, right? Because they have, and then
non-payment,
something to do with checkout. Something to do with like checkout friction. And then I would say our system basically does those three things beautifully.
Yes.
I would totally eliminate all these modern platform for interconnected vehicle. Like all that jargon is great if you already knew what the product was.
Yeah.
But we never got there.
And Will, this is where it's either tragic irony or poetic justice. This is where I'm pointing out, and because you buried it under here, that's where I pulled this from. This part was actually way more valuable in the bullets, even though I'm never going to read all the bullets, but at least I got a general idea of all the problems that they're trying to solve. This up here did not help. Okay, so now how it works, we got here. Ideally, you have a market slide, and here. I'm just going to read the headline. Behavioral intelligence isn't optional. It's how modern operators maximize revenue, eliminate friction, and future-proof their assets, Will.
No idea what any of that means. All right, let's dig into an example use case. Dynamic enforcement routing based on real-time behavioral violations. Jesus Christ. Agentic AI suggests optimal enforcement rules in real time based on behavioral anomalies. Why would I know what that means? Increasing ticket issuance efficiency and reducing manual patrol time.
I think it's saying we set you up to give up more parking tickets. Because look, if you look at the other bullet points, and I'm zooming out, and by the way, everyone, investors never going to do this. We're doing this because we want to help this improve. But look at it. It's redesigning the zone. And then tenant and permit mix evaluation. So talking about, hey, how do we sell permits, which we never mentioned before, but evaluating justifying capital investors. So now planning, and if we're going to invest in a parking lot, this is how we maximize our revenue. We've got so much going on.
We keep saying behavioral usage data. All I can think of, that means there's either a car parked there or there's not. Is there some sort of crazy behavior that I'm missing? Like people are doing donuts in the parking lot? That's their behavioral. I'm trying to think, like, this feels way more complicated than it is. Now, again, I am not the expert here, which is exactly why I'm responding the way I am. it feels like this could be really simple, and it's become really complex.
Like this system is patented. So I have to believe there's a use case on how they patented it. But if I was making a suggestion and using your example, I like your example, like planning better parking lots, right?
Yeah.
And it would literally be simple. Company needs to plan a parking lot. They look at all our data. It gives a recommendation based upon whatever analytics, and then boom, your parking lot makes more money than if you would have done it the old-fashioned way by this amount. I'm simplifying, but literally that's how it would work if I was doing your startup, Will, the one that you pitched.
I might on this one because I think there's a separate one. I think that's a how it works, like step by step. I might have separated this one into three categories based on what we took out of the problem statement. So I might have one category that talks about, let's say, our ability to detect, the equivalent of license plates or vehicles, et cetera, right? Like enforcement, right? I might say like operators will love three things: enforcement, because we can track everybody. We can automatically determine, we can always determine who owes money and how to collect it. Another one would be around doing what we've got here is like their AI real time kind of dynamic pricing. So based on inventory and based on a whole bunch of other factors, we can change pricing, violation terms, et cetera, to match every situation in real time. Like I would have probably grouped it in three, in the three being, again, directly tied to what I said the three problems were in the problem statement.
I wanted to highlight that. If you're bringing that up in your how it works, you better have established precedent. That's why we're so
Yeah.
confused. There was no precedent for this. And so everything's disjointed and you're just kind of throwing all the stuff onto the wall.
Yeah, I always say to folks, take every single thing that you do, that every problem you solve, and stack rank them from the most important to the least important. Let's start with, did we solve the most important thing? Like, is it clear that if you go through this deck that the most important thing is solved? And if so, is that enough? If it's not, right? If it's not, like in other words, maybe one of their three, maybe the top one, I'm making this up, is enforceability, right? The ability to like capture who the person was and be able to like, ticket them or what have you. What I would say is, if going through the deck you solve for enforceability, is that enough to make this a great product that could scale in the market? And you say, it's close because a lot of people need enforceability, but they also need analytics. My first pushback would be, do they? If this thing tracks every single person that comes through and can enforce this every single time, are they going to not use it because it doesn't have analytics? And like, no, they'd probably use it just for enforcement. And I'm not saying you have to stop there, but that's the mentality I want you to go through. I don't want you to just keep throwing stuff at the wall. That doesn't help.
Let me segue into the next thing, going off what Will said. So he just gave us a little pitch on enforcement and analytics for planning. Okay, let's just take that. Now we got this next slide, Will, where this is why customers would like it. But we're not solving the problem for customers who drive their cars. We haven't established that. And yes, this solution may have benefits for drivers, but that's not the focus of your pitch deck. It would be different if the problem was customers don't use parking spots anymore and they complain because they don't know where to go and get their tickets done, etc. And now we have stress-free parking with those things. You see, everyone, you establish where you're going with the problem solution, and then everything else falls into place.
Yeah, we always, and that's why, for a lot of you that have worked with us, like on pitch decks and stuff, or going through our courses, we'll say start with the problem statement. The problem statement and what we say are the 1, 2, or 3 problems are the North Star for the rest of the deck. Every single slide thereafter always maps back to what we said the problem was. If we have competition in everything that they do versus what we do are directly tied to what we said the problem was, right? Like, it all maps back to this. So we always have to nail the problem statement first. Now you can see if the problem statement isn't well defined, how damn near impossible it is to get the rest of the deck in order because we have nothing to ground it to. I have nothing to be able to say, oh, this how it works great, because it clearly defines how those 3 problems are enacted or solved.
Let's test the audience as well. Curious what your thoughts are if you're just watching this on YouTube. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're just going to shill ourselves on the social medias. But Will, here's a grand vision. Again, there are breadcrumbs. Genius always leaves clues, right? There are breadcrumbs that this founder is incredibly smart, has thought it through. But a slide like this, because it's not connected, is irrelevant to me. And maybe some of you in the audience could say, now I get it based on this slide. But Will, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's talking about a vision. This is the real-time operating system of parking, curb access, and vehicle to infrastructure data. I get it. You've got something that's kind of archaic and old, which is how like we're tracking traffic and analytics now, and you want to modernize it. That said, I'm not convinced that this problem is so extraordinary that this system gets $10 billion back. I haven't connected the dots yet, okay, to say oh, I understand exactly how it tracks every car, or I understand exactly why having analytics solves a financial problem that I have. I just don't understand. Here's a different way of saying it. I still don't exactly understand how much different this is from the red light, green light that I had at the Target in the mall in LA. Right now, it's not that I don't understand that there are differences. I'm saying I don't understand how it's dramatically better. For example, if I'm a passenger or I'm a driver rather, and I get to the parking lot and it says, hey, there's 14 spots on level one, there's 28 spots on level two. Not super hard to figure out, right? Now you could say, well, this will draw you a map and tell you exactly which spot to get to. More helpful for sure, right? But I'm still going to get to my spot. Like it's not like it's that hard. So, and again, that level of complexity varies quite a bit depending on the parking environment. And I dealt with a lot of this complexity living in LA. So I guess what I'm saying is like, I get it. I don't know as a passenger that this is like that massive of an issue for me. That's what I need the founder to tell me. Yeah, it's a huge issue, right? And here's why.
Hey, well, please indulge me for a moment while I kind of explain my point of view on this.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with a joke. Okay. The joke is that one time this father decides to prank his kid, basically says, I got a surprise for you. And he fills his backyard with manure. The backyard is just absolutely, it's a pile of manure. And he thought it'd be funny. No idea why he thought it'd be funny. And his kid comes out and looks at the pile of manure and suddenly jumps for joy and dives into the pile and starts swimming through the manure. And the dad says, son, what are you doing? It was a joke. And I thought it'd be funny. Why are you digging through the manure? And his kid says, because with all this shit here, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. That's what he says. Okay. Now, I tell this story not just for comedic relief, but listen, I believe there's a unicorn in every founder somewhere. It's a matter of mining it out, sometimes getting through this type stuff. And for me, what it occurs to me, and maybe you have thoughts on founders who do this. I see you in the audience, people. I know you got visionary people out there.
We have some great founders.
We've got visionary people, and they're like, oh, I see this vision, and I see a world of future that's going to need this. And then to get investors interested, you start backing it into a problem, and then that's where the mismatches occur because an investor is not interested in investing in the grand vision, wants to know that's there. But what is the acute problem, the underserved, underrepresented, the underestimated problem right now that's going to make us money?
I had a founder last week that I met with, helping out with his pitch deck. And I said, he had the right problem at the right time, like he had everything right, like aligned everything. But when I asked him to give me the pitch, I didn't understand a word he said. Right? And it's weird because it's a category I understand really well. And when I said to him, I said, let's just back up. What do you think the problem is? And he said to me, analytics, which I think is funny because like we're talking about analytics. And I was like, and he's like, that's it, analytics. I was like, dude, you can't say that, right? Like you can't just say analytics and pretend like I somehow know what the hell that even means, right? It means something to you because you've gone through the whole process, of understanding what the market opportunities are, et cetera. It's the equivalent of somebody came to me and said, Will, what's the problem with startups globally right now? And I would say, access. And you're like, what the hell does that even mean? Right? Like you can't just jump to the end and expect everybody to understand how the story went, right? You have to make me understand the problem as well as you do.
Well, this has been great. I got one more story for you to help the founders here. Talking to a founder today, and he's got this cool thing where you can put an anime character as a skin to talk to you instead of OpenAI talking to you or ChatGPT talking to you, right? And it superimposes in front of whatever you have on your phone, and it just pops up. But he's building all these tools. He's building all these tools like a calendar, task, So I said, why are you building all that stuff? Everybody else has that already. That exists. That's not moving the needle. Similar to what you're talking about here, as far as does it help someone with parking? And I said, you know what's really cool about this? I want to talk to my anime character and have it interact with me as my personal assistant and like talk to it and just act like mirror on the wall, tell me a joke or whatever. I would download that all day, especially because, I love watching anime. I said, focus on that. But founders do this. They say, oh, I need to add all this suite of products and this and that. And then they lose that key differentiator. Why now? Why you? What's different? And why that investor's money?
Focus on the one thing that's most important. And then, yes, add some features around it as need be, but make sure you don't lose sight of the plot, which is what was most important. Throughout the week, Ed and I meet with tons of people because we just absolutely love meeting with founders. And we hear every idea you can possibly imagine. It goes from truly batshit crazy, right? Like not like Steve Jobs batshit crazy, just batshit crazy. Like I want to build a robot to destroy New York kind of thing, right? To holy cow, I can't believe, like, I never even saw that coming. That's like so mind-blowing, right? So the huge spectrum that we see, and I actually kind of love both. We see this stuff all the time. We see people with great ideas with an inability to communicate them. And, our job obviously is to try to change that. But what I kind of love is regardless of which end of the spectrum it's on, I love talking. I mean, you can kind of see it in our enthusiasm, but just I love it. I love my job.
Well, it definitely helps, not to blow any sunshine, but it helps that I can talk to you about it. And that's where we have a lot of great other advisors like Ryan, some of the other advisors on our platform. And then we got cool founders to talk about. And I'm looking at our audience, I'm reminded, well, this is a good exercise here. And we might not get through the rest of this deck, but we had this comment and it was, I think it's self-parking smart cars without behavioral meltdown issues, right? Which could be valid, but we'll break that down as to why, like, if that really is the case, is that actually valuable? Are there enough smart cars? Is there enough behavioral issues that are costing us lots of money? Like, there are so many implications going down that road as well.
If I were to simplify that, finding a parking spot is frustrating and shitty. Okay. Like, I think you would universally get buy-in on that one. So for the end user, every time you pull in a parking lot, you get this anxiety of not being able to find a spot, blah, blah, blah. Conversely, most operators who run those parking lots are losing billions of dollars because finding a parking spot is complicated and shitty. And so I would open up with something more colloquial, something more simple that everyone can relate to, and then start to layer on where we add some complexity, for lack of a better word, right?
Well, a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and this could be the inflection point, a startup raised millions of dollars to help apartment complexes plan EV parking and charging stations because
Right.
nobody knew how to handle that. And that was the inflection point. Tesla was getting popular. And so
Yeah.
everyone was predicting this massive boom was going to happen. And apartment complexes needed to plan for EV parking because people get frustrated to attract better tenants. That was like someone drove an electric
Yeah.
vehicle. It was a
Yeah.
better tenant. So that was an acute problem that had a clear ROI attached to it. And hence they were successful in fundraising. But that's the opposite of what's happening here. We're all over the map here.
Yeah. And again, I may say something like parking lots in general are only 70% full, even though they have 100% demand. And the issue is routing,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Cool. Super easy to understand. We optimize for routing to get more to get drivers where they need to go and fully optimize parking lot revenue. Like that seems super obvious, but again, the fact that I don't even know if that's the problem is the problem.
Well, it gets even more complicated with this slide, Will. All right. So I'll make some quick comments. This is the market slide. Everyone, this should have been your third slide. Just letting you know, problem solution market, please.
Okay.
Based on 5% transaction fee, university commercial. So first of all, we haven't mentioned any commercial, any university, and total paid parking industry. That's a top down. I don't know if it's relevant. Could be if you plan on taking every single dollar of every parking lot, all this stuff. And then we have a SAM college and universities, and then 6-year geo target CA Texas. Oh yeah, these are the state's campuses. So we did narrow it down, but I'll let you go first.
Okay. The first thing I'm just not sure of, and this is just me having a look at a gazillion decks, says the TAM is 7.4 billion. In order for the TAM to be 7.4 billion, which by the way, it may be, you're basically saying the fee revenue from every parking lot in the United States collectively equals 7.4 billion, which might absolutely be true. The reason I'm bringing this up is I'm fairly sure in the problem statement, we said that folks are losing $10 billion. And I'm thinking to myself, which is possible. I mean, there actually is a version, but like they're losing more than the entire industry generates.
Yeah.
I'm curious where the 10 billion was compelling, right? It was a great thing to lead with. When we got to the TAM, which is always where I just validate whether that's true, I didn't see a connection. I saw 10 billion in annual losses on an entire market that only has 7 billion of total revenue.
Right.
Now that's possible. It actually is possible. You could just, the whole industry could be running at a loss. But for a mature industry, I find that hard to believe.
Let me interrupt you super quick because this is how you can extrapolate there. And by the way, everyone, investors do this. It's not just Will and his freakishly, good memory, short-term working memory and penchant for numbers. Investors will punch holes to this. But say, for example, I could see a world where, let's say the problem was missed revenue due to non-payment. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just simplify it down. So we've got, for every $1 million in revenue they make, they lose $100,000.
10%.
You could then go right in the market and say, this is the total of the parking lots. And if it's $7.4 billion, your market, you could argue, is the $100,000 per million that is left off the table. And that would move the investor. If that was indeed the problem, we don't know.
Let's assume for a second that we got $7 billion on the table of the total paid parking industry. I'm guessing that the amount of missed non-optimized revenue, I guess I'm totally guessing, is 10 to 20% of that. Let's say 20%, I'm going to say on the high end, okay?
Right.
Which would get us in the neighborhood of about 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
Still a big number, still meaningful. But that ain't $10 billion.
Right.
Right now, I'm sure if the founder was here and this poor founder is going to be watching this video, going like, "Oh my god, these guys don't know what they're talking about." And I get it, I get it. Same thing, I'd be saying. But I say this to say, the fact that we can't easily make these connections is a huge issue, right? It should be a layup, no brainer. At the very least, whatever number you used in your problem statement should absolutely be the same as you used in your TAM. There's no question.
I'm going to summarize this. This is all top down, everyone. This is just taking, well, maybe except for the last Psalm, but you're not the whole industry, right? And that's just the bottom line to it. Unless you're the payment processor and you're going to, every single dollar that gets paid in the parking industry is going to run through your system. This is not your market, and investors will challenge you on that. Let's do one more slide, Will.
Yeah,
let's try to get to it. How it works technology. And I want to push us to this because maybe it offers a little more insights, but we've got two-way comms. Just going to overview it. You got connected vehicle and a smart sensor, and they talk to each other, and then it gets connected with AI, enabling V2I ready parking. I don't know what that is.
it's vehicle to infrastructure, Ed. Where have you been?
Oh, see, that's what we need. Well, pull out your checkbook, man. You're ready to write the check right now.
Yeah. Okay. So I did look at this slide earlier, like previous to this, and this was probably the most informative slide that I could get. Let me try to tell you as I processed it, where I got a little bit stuck. Vehicles automatically connect to sensors upon entry. My first thought was, and I know they've kind of touched on this in parts of the deck. What if my vehicle doesn't? What if I'm driving a 1975 Pinto? Right. How the hell is it connected? Now you're going to say, oh, they get a fob, some sort of kind of alternate connection device. And I'm like, well, why would they have that? Right now, you could say, well, it was issued to them because this is all about areas where we're controlling kind of who these people are, like people who park daily, et cetera. And then I'm like, well, don't you already know who they are at that point? But so be it, right? Secure real-time data exchange begins instantly. Why do I care that it's secure? In other words, why would anybody care that it's secure? I say that might be super important. You might have been able to say, actually, security of this information is incredibly important, but I wouldn't know that. So saying that you're doing it without telling me why it would matter is a little bit challenging. Enables a seamless behavioral tracking from arrival to departure. I get that. Okay, cool. You're tracking me around the parking lot. Okay. For non-connected vehicles, and this is what we said, low-cost standalone fobs are made available. That's what I said a moment ago. Presumably, you founder, assume that I know that, like, I drive a Rivian pickup truck. Okay, so a fairly new connected vehicle. You're going to assume that I know that vehicle can somehow connect, presumably through Bluetooth or something, to this parking lot. But I don't know that that's been established. Like, by the way, did you know that every autonomous vehicle or every electric vehicle automatically has Bluetooth that allows it to connect with sensors? I don't know that I don't connect to my phone. I don't know if my car randomly connects to parking lots. I'm saying maybe it does. How would I even know that?
Yeah, but furthermore, Will, I don't know. Back to your point, you bring this up. Why is this important? Like, it's just, why would I want my car? Because let's go back. I park just fine and I pay my tickets and I get chased if I didn't pay a ticket or there's a violation.
Yeah.
Like, that system seems to work. So why now? Why is this important? And if there's an argument because of electric vehicles or what you brought up, autonomous vehicles, and we're heading to cataclysmic disaster when all that happens, then sure, explain that. And some investor will believe that. But if this is a future play, that's great. But right now I'm like, why do I need this? How is this going to make my life better? Or even if I own a parking lot, I'm fine. My machines work, all that stuff. And would I do all this for a lift of 20% revenue? That's another question. If I'm a university, these are questions that are not answered for me right now.
Well, you got a couple things. When you're talking about university specifically, higher ed in any form, the sales cycles are a nightmare. So just be mindful. Like, nearly any investor who's done anything knows that as soon as you say you're selling into higher ed, that is a very complex, monolithic, slow-moving, nearly glacial kind of sale in most cases. So while the opportunities always exist because collectively the higher ed has big money, trying to get into higher ed, trying to sell to them, trying to get them to do freaking or anything is so hard. So be it. Cities would be the same. So if I want to be able to sell into the city of X, right? The sales cycle there and like the RFP process, bananas, right? So when I look at who we're going to sell to, I'm often also looking at what is the friction to selling into that audience, to selling into that category. And if it feels like this is a high friction area, which if the founder was here right now and say, hey, this kind of feels high friction, then I'd want some sort of reassurance somewhere in the deck, like our go-to-market strategy, et cetera, that says we'll be able to move faster, against, slow sales cycles because of XYZ, whatever we're doing differently. Otherwise, it's everything you just said. I get real anxious about that sales cycle in the speed to market.
We've got the go-to-market strategy part coming up on Thursday, but Will, I want to end with this. One, you got a team, great looking founder, by the way. We got social proof, logos, like what's not to like. So that indicated to me, this is how I came to the conclusion, it's a really smart team. they know in their heads what they're talking about is just poorly communicated. Will, it's kind of like if I sat down and Bill Gates came to me and said, I need you to write me a check. He pitched me, and he had a vision, computer in every home, and he pitched me Windows, Office 365 with Azure, and say he had it all planned out in his head, right? And he laid out this map. I'd be like, yeah, pass. But he said, oh, I make DOS visual.
Yeah.
There are all these people. I'd be like, okay, this is really interesting. So you're allowed, Will, to have the vision for the future, but you gotta give the investors a ramp to get there and write you that first check.
At Startups.com, we're literally going to create a virtual co-founder for every founder in the future, right? Like we will be kind of like where people have a co-founder now that helps build the future with them. They will have a virtual co-founder that we will give you for pennies on the dollar to do 100x more than they'll ever do. Okay?
Right.
Cool. But today, we're just going to try to get you funded.
Yeah.
Today, we're just going to try to explain to you how a pitch deck works, right? So yes, we have a very big vision, very broad and very detailed, but we give it away in bite sizes that people can actually digest, right? We don't say that we're going to have Azure and Xbox someday. We just said like, dude, MS-DOS sucks. We're going to put a graphical interface on it.
Bill, let's wrap it up. I'd like to ask you two questions.
Yeah.
And you can answer them. One is, what is your just real quick next steps advice for this founder? What to do? Let's summarize that. And then also talk to the members that you see in our audience as well, who are suffering the same thing and kind of relate to them. Maybe you could kill two birds with one stone. But what's the next steps after a pitch deck like this?
Here's what I'm going to ask the founder to do as an exercise. I'm going to say, get rid of the entire deck. Okay. Now, not because we won't pull from it, because I don't like modifying decks that are already complex, because what we end up doing is we take what's there and we try to make that smaller. And I'm like, that's the wrong approach. Give me a fresh deck. Give me a blank canvas. Let's write the words from scratch. And what I'm going to say is problem statement. You get one sentence, go. Right? That's all you get. Right. All you get is one sentence. Next slide, solution. You get one sentence, go. Instead of trying to torture all this other content and try to reduce bullets, etc., I want you to write it all from scratch with very tight parameters. And what that's going to force you to do is only say the stuff that matters. And that's the point. That's like, that's the whole point. That's how I do it. When I look at a deck, and I know a lot of folks in the audience have worked with me before, the first thing I'll say is, in the simplest terms, what is this? In almost every case, Ed, what comes out of that discussion winds up being the problem statement or the how it works or whatever. Simple always wins.
For those of you in our audience, please, one of the things we want to help you work through is your own cognitive bias. Don't be in denial. And here's how I can tell you. If you go and just take the word count on your slides and it's over 30, and believe me, some of your word counts are in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Then you automatically know you're in this territory. You may be thinking, oh, that's not me. It's super clear. I used as many words, but I was more concise than that. You weren't. And that's okay. We're here. This is a safe place with dangerous messages, everybody, right? We'll work through that.
And did you say a safe place with dangerous messages?
I did.
I love that. I'm stealing that.
We live on the edge. We want you to be totally secure and know, again, it's not about you. It's not at you. It's with you. We want to do it with you.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
the message here. So, Will, appreciate it. Last word of encouragement for everybody.
Last word of encouragement is, this is the process. Okay, this is the process. The process is, I start with a ton of stuff and I chisel it down. I Occam's razor it down to what's the most important thing. So don't worry if your deck looks like this. Don't worry if you've got a whole bunch of stuff on 40 slides. I don't care. The goal isn't to get it right the first time. The goal is to take all that stuff and whittle it down to 10 to 12 slides with one sentence, maybe two a piece, but use that raw clay to get started, right? Don't worry about that. But use that raw clay to get started, and then we'll get you down to 10 or 12 slides that are just absolutely badass.
Let me add one more thing. We just got a comment, an incredulous comment, like actually 30 words. Here's the test.
I think it's 30 slides or words.
Words. I think you can get it to 30 words. What you do is go to ChatGPT, give it your deck, and say, tell me what it would look like in 30 words. Yep. You will be amazed. It's rough, real rough. That's the hard part. This is the heavy lifting. Challenge, gauntlet thrown down, Will. Always appreciate your time. Will, I'm going to see you next week.